Good morning, everybody. Thanks for coming here. We have, of course, an ongoingly important topic to discuss today, but certainly a campaign to respond to it. This past Sunday, I hosted with a number of religious leaders in San Francisco what we called a Peace Sunday, and I was very gratified for it to have been led by Reverend Jesse Jackson, who came out here to help us in reducing violence in our communities. And that's been a topic that, as still a new mayor, I find always disturbing is any form of violence in the city. And what a mayor working with community-based agencies and religious leaders and other civic and elected officials can do to reduce violence in our city. I established, in response to this past year's violence, a program called IPO, interrupting that violence as much as we can with refreshed police tactics. Chief Sir has been a great leader on that. And then with the district attorney's office as well, working on the predictive policing work that we can do, actually trying to see whether we can predict where crime will occur and having programs to stop it before it even occurs. But the most important part of this strategy is the O part of IPO, that is community organizing. Because if there's any way to prevent violence from ever happening, it has to be at a level where we're helping organize communities around things that we know will happen if we didn't pay attention to it. Well, similarly, domestic violence can be treated the same way. We have to end domestic violence in the city, and it's not just because of one incident or one official and the circumstances around it. Domestic violence has always been a challenge for our city, and we have always committed to doing better. This year, we're faced with the reality. Domestic violence calls for help have gone up. Statistics of domestic violence incidences have gone up. What are we doing about that? We're not going to be political about it. We have to be very demonstrably effective in our implementation of programs to prevent domestic violence from increasing. We also have to be culturally competent. We have to get language services out there with community-based organizations to make sure that we do not accept any form of violence, particularly domestic violence. And so today we're launching a refreshed program, a new program, with all of our community-based partnerships, with all of our city agencies, led by the Board of Supervisors, David Chiu, and our office, along with DA Gascón, and launching an effort called Peace at Home. Peace at Home is a campaign that's going to be year-round, and we know the value of culturally competent education. If we can penetrate that with a level of enforcement and reporting, we have, I think, the greatest opportunity to reduce domestic violence. We are announcing this at a time when it's holiday season, but we also know from years of experience and data suggests to us that domestic violence goes up during the holidays. There's a lot of depression that goes along with holidays, and we understand that. So Peace at Home is a campaign to try to address that right away. We also know that in addition to the holidays, that the data has told us that this is going up, and part of it is better reporting, but also part of it is real cases that are happening. So we need to penetrate, and we've learned that many of our immigrant families don't know about the services, haven't had the ability to report things in a culturally competent way, or have services in a culturally competent way respond to it. So we're going to help our community-based agencies that are in the trenches every single day asking us for more help. And in that effort, I want to thank Board President David Chiu for stepping up. He has authored and led a supplemental piece of legislation that will get serious money out there, and we are glad because this is our issue. Domestic violence is not a women's issue. It is not just a family issue, it's everybody's issue, and we have to share in the responsibility to improve on that. And that's why I've asked not only Board President David Chiu in supporting his legislative efforts to get the resources out there to make sure that we have congregated all of the community-based organizations, all of the city agencies to work together, and to seriously deal with the data that DA Gascón is presenting to us about the real cases that are happening out there and how we can use every single case and anticipate better how to prevent this from happening. So we are unveiling this. You see to my right and to my left examples of the education materials that we're going to be funding with this collaborative launch of this campaign. It will be year-round. We're not just saying it's for the holidays. We're beginning it at a time when we believe there'll be more crises presented to us. But we're going to get to these homes. We're going to provide answers. We're going to provide a sense that you can't participate in domestic violence. There are alternatives to committing this kind of violence. We want to end it. We are serious about it. We're putting serious money behind it. And we're timing this with all the agencies together to make sure that we cover what I think is the most important part. We can't just put it on the police. We can't just put it on case-by-case prosecutions. We have to educate everybody to a higher level of non-acceptance of domestic violence. And this is what we're attempting to do. And at this time, I'd like to introduce again and thank Board President David Chiu for his leadership at the board. And he'll let you know and go through the details about the legislation and the funding and the collaboration we have. Board President David Chiu.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, and for your leadership. And I want to thank all of you in front of us and behind us for representing the diversity of San Francisco and coming together for this critical issue. As the mayor said, during this holiday season, we know that incidents and statistics around family violence increase. And we also know that domestic violence impacts every part of our community, every neighborhood, every ethnic group, and every income level. Every single one of us has been touched over the course of our lives by domestic violence. I stand here in part because when I was in my early 20s, someone who was close to me was in an abusive relationship. And this is why over the years I worked for a period of time in our district attorney's office, why I served on the boards of 2 domestic violence organizations as part of the incredible community that is leading on this effort. As the mayor alluded, last week I introduced a supplemental appropriations, and I want to thank the mayor for his support, along with a supermajority of my colleagues, as well as our district attorney, to really ensure that we are adequately funding our safety net when it comes to our domestic violence victims. Our district attorney will talk about the help that he will hopefully be getting in a few short months when it comes to additional investigators and domestic violence victim advocates, as well as prosecutors. We have nonprofit organizations that are in dire need of help so that they can provide restraining orders and child custody help and other legal assistance to our victims and survivors of domestic violence. We need to have more coordination here in city government of all of the agencies that are already doing good work. And of course, today we're here to talk about a new public awareness campaign so that we can ensure that everyone in San Francisco knows that San Francisco city government takes this issue extremely seriously. I want to take a moment and just go through some of the statistics over the past year and a half of what's happening when it comes to domestic violence. The most recent report on family violence shows that over the most recently recorded one-year period, the number of cases that are handled by the district attorney's office has gone up by 10%. Probation is supervising 17% more batterers. Our domestic violence shelters are handling 29% more bed nights for victims of domestic violence. Our domestic violence hotlines are seeing 47% more calls. And the number of child support cases being handled that involve violence has seen a 202% increase over the one-year period that is laid out in this 2011 report. We know that this is a season of caring, and it's so important for us with this Peace at Home campaign to show that San Francisco cares. We take this extremely seriously, and again, I want to thank all of you for being part of this effort, and it's my pleasure to introduce a critical partner in how we are going to stamp out domestic violence in San Francisco, and that is our District Attorney, George Gascón.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Supervisor Chiu, and thank all the other supervisors that have joined in this effort, as well as everyone that is standing behind me and those of you that are there supporting us. You know, domestic violence knows no economic boundaries. It knows no social boundaries. It impacts all of us. It is something that is predictable, especially after it happens. One is likely to happen over and over again. And we know that the violence levels tend to increase as there is repeat incidents of domestic violence within the home. We also know that a large number of people that are in state prison today involved in crimes of violence were people that came from homes where domestic violence was present when they were growing up. We know that the majority of the victims of domestic violence come from homes where domestic violence was present when they were growing up. This is a health issue as much as it is a crime issue. And we need to stop domestic violence from occurring in our community. But in order to do so, we have to have the funding and the resources necessary to prevent it through public education and through the work that many of our partners in our community-based organizations do. We need to be able to intervene when we know that there is a problem, and ultimately, we need to be able to prosecute and hold people accountable when they are going and committing these crimes and hurting people. And in order for us to be able to do all of this, we have to make sure that our partners in our community-based organizations are well funded, and we have to make sure that the police and the prosecution are well funded. And what we have seen is as our workload has increased in the last year very, very significantly, we have seen a degradation of our ability to deliver the services that we provide to victims. And many people, when they think of the district attorney, they only think about the prosecution, and they often do not realize that we also provide a tremendous amount of victim services. We actually have advocates that work with our victims, work with the family, to make sure that they're getting help, they're getting medical help, they're getting psychological help, they're getting financial help. Often they're being relocated. We also need investigators that can go out there and get the cases ready once the police department turns it over to us to make sure that we have a good prosecutable case. We need paralegals and we need attorneys. So what the supplemental is going to do for us is be able to bring us to a level where we can restore the level of work that San Francisco has been used to and that we continue to maintain with the increase that we currently have, at the same time that we're working with all the other partners to prevent domestic violence from continuing to increase in our city and hopefully make all of us safer. Again, I want to repeat this because this is really, really important. Domestic violence knows no social and no economic boundaries, and it's not restricted to the home. Young people that grow up in homes where domestic violence is present generally go out and commit other types of crimes, and we have evidence of that in every one of our prisons today. So I want to thank the mayor for his leadership. I want to thank Supervisor Chiu, and I want to thank all of our other partners for their leadership. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The Commission on the Status of Women have been our city government's focal point to gather not only voices, but the actual performance of what we need to do as a whole city. And they are on the ground with literally all of the community-based organizations, with the leadership from the advocates, from family advocates, from advocates for women to protect women, again, from violence. So they're critical to the collaboration that we have with community-based organizations. And I want to introduce at this time, we've been working very closely with Emily Morase, and she has some specific announcements to make and introductions to make around some of the key collaborative efforts that we're doing in our communities. Emily.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No matter where we call home, we all deserve peace. The City and County of San Francisco, with the leadership of Mayor Lee and Board President David Chiu, have made an unprecedented investment in services for women survivors of domestic violence and their families. Over $3 million is going to confidential counseling, emergency shelter, legal services, and other critical services. These services are provided by 24 community-based agencies located throughout the city who respond in a range of languages, including Spanish, Cantonese, Mandarin, Vietnamese, Cambodian, Lao, Samoan, Tagalog, Japanese, Korean, and Arabic. The network among these partner agencies is incredible. They're here standing with the mayor today. Each one serves an entry point to all of the services in these different languages and more. Last year, these partner agencies served 30,000 individuals and provided over 40,000 hours of supportive services. Inspired by the holiday season, our partner agencies contributed artwork expressing their holiday message about peace at home. All the original artwork came directly from those whom they serve. Strong women who have emerged from a violent situation, those who continue to struggle with trauma from the past, and children who have witnessed or experienced domestic violence. The artwork will be featured on an outreach flyer with the message that everyone deserves peace at home, and that San Francisco responds 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. These flyers will include referral numbers and be distributed to schools, libraries, and recreation centers as part of the new public outreach effort announced by the mayor and made possible by the supplemental sponsored by President Chiu. Representing our partner agencies today are Kathy Black, Executive Director of La Casa de las Madres, and Orchid Pusey, Associate Director of Asian Women's Shelter, who will give a few remarks.
Hi, thank you, Mayor Lee, DA Gascón, Supervisor Chiu, the Department on the Status of Women, and advocates. La Casa is a proud partner in your commitment to increasing the community's awareness about domestic violence. Over 36 years ago, La Casa's founders started something really big in San Francisco. They opened one of the world's first shelters for victims of domestic violence, and that would change the course of history for women and children seeking violence-free lives. In the face of opposition, they started this shelter, and from there the movement took off. Who could have imagined that we would find ourselves here today, having to redouble our efforts so that we can hold on to the ground that we've gained? This room is filled with those playing an important role both on the front lines and behind the scenes. We are bold and outspoken, we are advocates, and we share a strong voice against domestic violence. With the mayor's campaign and going forward, we have to move beyond just simply reminding the community that domestic violence is not a private family matter. It's a crime and must be treated as such. All of us must remain steadfast in affirming that domestic violence in any form, physical, financial, verbal, emotional, is wrong. Mayor Lee, I want to thank you again for all your support for victims and survivors of domestic violence. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Orchid Pusey, and I'm with Asian Women's Shelter. And every day I work in a community-based organization whose staff holds together 130 years of experience ending domestic violence. And that's just counting the staff years of experience working at Asian Women's Shelter. Since 1988, we've been working in and with communities that are immigrant, refugee, LGBT, U.S.-born people of color, low-income, homeless, in danger, and otherwise needing immediate and long-term support. So let me make this one point extremely clear. There are people of every background, culture, ethnicity, language, race, sexual orientation, class background, age, nation, who know that domestic violence is unacceptable and who are collaboratively leading movements to end it. We're in this city and we're in the hearts of the communities that we love, and we're trying our best to change the values that condone violence, that collude with violence, that minimize violence, or that deny it wholesale and call it something else. In this past year, we've seen how many misconceptions are still out there about domestic violence and about the community-based and systems-based responses to it. These misconceptions have been spread rapidly and irresponsibly. And some might say, why so harsh, Orchid? Why irresponsible? It could just be a little bit uninformed, inaccurate. And I'll tell you why irresponsible. It's irresponsible because every time we talk, survivors are listening. And I mean right now, they are listening. And every time we talk, people who use violence, whether they own it and are taking steps to change it or not, are listening. And every time we talk, community members and family members who are working together to try to stop violence are listening. And it's our basic duty to give them the right information, to give each other the right information. And that's what a public announcement, a public service campaign is about, to make visible what the real services are in your community and the real services in your systems. So that's why we are so ready, 100% ready, to take this work on in the coming months and years. And with the city's commitment of further collaboration and the necessary financial resources for community-based organizations, we will, I swear, I promise, do everything we can to build a safer tomorrow. And I know that's a cliche, but it is what we do, and it's what we care the most about. Thank you.
So I just want to, again, give a shout out to everybody who is standing together here behind me, and on the side we have people from education, people from the Juvenile Justice Center, people obviously from the community and all advocates. We're going to all work together very closely on this. We have to have heightened awareness. We have to penetrate more to the people who think that violence is an answer to anything. And we have to do even better on enforcement to bring this data down, but also give confidence to our communities that we have your back. Thank you to everybody here, and not only have a wonderful holiday, but that we'll be continuing to work together all year long to get heightened awareness on this and make sure we can prevent as many cases from coming forward. Thank you for being here today.